Hello, ladies and gentlemen, my name is StepsBasic and welcome back to my community show. The show where we take a moment from playing video games to talk about video games and the community around it. I decided I wanted to do this new segment on this show that I might either do back to back to back until I'm done, or I might, skip ahead or skip around, or, occasionally not do a part of it. The segment that I want to do on this show now, I want to do something called Parts to a Good Game. Now, technically, everything I'm going to discuss are parts to any game, and can easily be also taken to parts to a movie or parts to a story. And as I'm an author, I feel particularly, equipped to discuss the parts of said story, and as I've been an avid video gamer for most of my life, I feel I'm particularly equipped to judge what makes a good game. Now, of course, that's all subjective. If you like something, you like it. If you don't like it, then you don't like it. And so, naturally, I'm going to talk about my opinion on these things and whatnot. So today, my topic of choice is characters. The characters within the story, the people who make up the game. Now, these can easily be broken down into three different topics. For when applied to video games, you have your protagonist, your antagonist, and your support characters. What makes these characters who they are? Well, your protagonist, the character or characters around which the whole story revolves. Now, generally you have one focus character. Even in RPGs, there's one main character. Even though you have a party like in Final Fantasy VII, you have a party of 3 up to, 8 or 9. Sadness. Anyway, but generally it's limited to just one or a few characters. When it comes to any character, there are two specific types of said character. Like the protagonist has two specific types. You have your dynamic character and you have your static character. The dynamic character is the character who grows throughout the story, who learns a lesson, who becomes stronger, bigger, better, awesomer. And then there's the static character who essentially stays the same throughout the entire story. Now, arguably, you never want to see a static character, but there are certain situations where a static character is kind of unavoidable. Now, that also leads us into the hero versus the anti-hero dichotomy. Everyone's like, oh, hero and anti-hero, isn't that like the enemy versus the villain? No, an anti-hero is not necessarily an antagonist. In fact, usually isn't the antagonist. Rather, the anti-hero is the protagonist, but doesn't do things that we typically associate with hero. Now, if we want to look at this in the broad spectrum of hero and anti-hero, we have Superman, who is a static character, and he's a hero. He doesn't change throughout any of his stories because he is, truth, justice, and the American way. I guess technically that part's changed in the current years, but essentially he stays the same. He's always about the truth and the justice and doing things the right way for everyone. And then you have, arguably, for the anti-hero side, you have Batman, who is the dark, brooding man who doesn't play by the rules. He believes he can go outside the law, and blah, blah, blah. But of course, I actually don't see Batman as an anti-hero, even though everyone's like, oh, but he's so dark and brooding. But that doesn't necessarily make an anti-hero. An anti-hero is somebody who essentially is very self-serving. Now, that sounds all weird and stuff, but that doesn't that's nothing like a hero or anything. Well, no, it's not. That's the point of an anti-hero. They exhibit traits of self-servingness or serving only those close to them. Whereas Batman, he still dedicates his life to justice, he just circumvents the justice system for it. And of course, the whole aspect of, I don't kill anybody, leaving behind broken, beaten, probably completely crippled for life people behind him, but he doesn't kill anybody, right? Yay. When you want to think about anti-hero versus hero, let's look at, say, Cloud Strife, right? He's a hero. He is all about saving the world from evil, destructiveness, and such. And yeah, sure, he starts out as a mercenary. He's like, I'm so me, and blah, blah, blah. But then he dynamically changes into the hero that we need for the story. I will save the world from Sephiroth and the meteor. Of course, he's probably a good example of a very dynamic character because he starts out big, boisterous, bold. I can do no wrong. I am better than everybody else. I'm soldier first class. And then realizes that his whole life is essentially a lie. And, you know, as you've seen in the last episodes I've done of the Final Fantasy VII series, he finds out that everything's a lie and he's not exactly the big bold hero that he thought he was. But yeah, he is an example of a hero because he dedicates his life to saving the world. Now, if we want to look for a good, like, in my opinion, the best example of an anti-hero, one needs to look no farther than The Last of Us for our favorite Joel. Now, Joel, he is very self-serving. He's a drug runner, a smuggler. He does all the stuff that he needs to get money and survive. Well, I guess not really money, because they don't really have money in that apocalypse scenario. And then he meets Ellie, right? And it's like, oh, if you've never watched or never played the game The Last of Us, what's the matter with you? It's an awesome game. But spoilers ahead if you've never watched it or played it. But he meets Ellie, and at first he's like, I don't like you. You're a kid. Stop getting in my way. You're stupid. And then the thing happens with Tess, and he gets even worse, all angry at her. It's like, oh, this is your fault. If it wasn't for you, none of this would be happening. And then at the end, we see, again, spoilers, we see the true nature of the anti-hero come out. Now, I loved the ending to The Last of Us because it didn't give you a choice, because any choice would have invalidated the character of Joel. You know, he goes and, spoiler. He goes into the Firefly lab shooting everybody. I mean, technically you have the choice not to shoot the doctors at the end, but, you know, except for the one who charges at you. But, you know, he kills everybody. And then saves Ellie, even though her death, her sacrifice, would have arguably saved the world. He said, no, I don't care. I want my Ellie. And, you know, you see the whole thing where he lies to her about it at the end. It's like, nope, there was no cure. Sorry. Couldn't help it. Very self-serving, very anti-hero. But definitely still, you know, a protagonist in the story. Now, when it comes to hero, anti-hero, you know, I always feel more akin to the anti-hero types. That doesn't mean I'm evil or anything, or completely self-serving, but anti-heroes always seem more human than heroes do. People who do nothing but good for the sake of goodness and righteousness and justice and everything. Those people don't exist. Except, of course, in stories and games and movies. And the anti-hero, very self-serving, but also so much more human than any of the other archetypes. You give me a good dynamic hero, or a good dynamic anti-hero, and I'm like, oh god, this is a perfect character. And, you know, that was Joel in a nutshell, which is the biggest reason I'd have to say that I love The Last of Us, because it was, it showed a giant, like, cross-section of what a human would do in these situations. And people are like, oh, well, this is unrealistic. Well, actually, it was the most realistic version of any sort of zombie story I've ever heard. Alright, so let's now talk about antagonists. Now, you got your protagonists, who are the heroes, and then you got your antagonists, who are the villain. The literal aim and goal of the entire story is to destroy, defeat, or dethrone this guy, or girl, or group of people. The antagonist of the story. What would make a good bad guy? Well, in my opinion, a good bad guy is a believable bad guy. Now, you've got your Snideleys and your curly Q mustaches and your black hats and well, that actually curled. That was weird. But you got all them folks who are like, me, very evil, yeah. And yeah, they're bad guys. You can obviously tell. Like, look at Final Fantasy VII again. Sephiroth's main goal in the entire story is to destroy the world. Although he wants to do this in order to bring his mother back, and he's serious mommy issues, am I right? And then you got Rufus and Shinra, who don't care about what they're doing to the world. All they want is money, 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 mako. These are very clearly bad guys, right? They don't make, in my opinion, good bad guys. I like Sephiroth because he's pretty BA. You know, his huge sword, his like, I don't give a about anybody but myself and my mommy. You know, he's not so much a good bad guy, but I like his character. He's very two-dimensional, but very interesting, you know. he's got somewhat of a backstory and all that coolness. And, you know, he kicks butt. So, you know, not necessarily good bad guys in my opinion. Definitely want to take them out, definitely want to defeat them, and yes, in that aspect they are good bad guys because you want to defeat them. But to me, a good bad guy is somebody who's believable, somebody whose aim is neutral. You look at what they're doing and you're like, God, I can't disagree with what you're saying. I don't remember which team it was, but there was a team in Pokemon that actually made me think about that, because their ultimate goal was not to profit off them like Team Rocket, not to destroy them like other teams, or not to just abuse and use them and see Pokemon only as toys and slaves and whatnot. But their whole goal was to liberate Pokemon. And arguably that's not a bad idea, because you got these humans who are throwing balls at them and trapping them and using them to fight, and it's like, I just want to live a pacifist life, or Pika Pika. And you know, that's an arguably good goal. Now, of course, they don't. Now, of course, when it comes to bad guys, you look at it and you're like, well, how are you going about this? You're not out there picketing saying, leave these Pokemon be. Pokemon are not meant to be battles. They're not weapons. They are animals. Leave them alone. Peta, Peta, Peta. No, they're out there beating up people and using Pokemon to beat up people. And, you know, it's like, well, you got some good goals, or you got some good aims, but what are you doing to get there? That's the problem. Now, you can look at other situations like, oh, shoot. I was going to use another example from another video game, but I can't remember what the video game was. I mean, you use the X-Men, right? Now, technically, you look at the X-Men versus the Brotherhood, right? X-Men want peace, want mutants to be accepted and loved and all that stuff. And the Brotherhood wants humanity to stop torturing mutants. Their goal is peace with humans too, but their goal is also kill the humans, and that's the problem. So that leads us to the last and final topic of the characters, which would be the sub-characters, support characters, or NPCs, the non-playable characters. Now, truth be told, there's not a whole lot that you need to put into a sub-character, because they are sub-characters. Now, there have been a few examples of good uses of sub-characters and whatnot throughout gaming history. But this is where you see a lot of the lazy writing come into play, you know, like you see the rambunctious teenager, you see the diehard guardsman, you see the snooty money-grubbing shopkeepers, you know, all these types of, you know, tropes, for lack of a better word, in these lazy writing tactics. And that's, in most cases, you know, I'm not too hip to the tropes, but in sub-characters it's fine, because quite frankly they aren't important or pivotal to the plot in some cases. Now, if you think about sub-characters as backup characters, support characters, you got Final Fantasy VII again. You have 9 different main characters, or you've got Cloud and 8 other supporting characters. Now, arguably at some points in the story, Cloud is not important at all, especially when he's, you know, having makeup poisoning, being in a coma and whatnot. But those other 8 characters are pretty darn pivotal. And of course you see a lot of the different, like I was talking about, lazy tropes in the characters there. You got the spunky girl, Yuffie. You've got the father slash environmentalist in Barrett. You have, let's see, the stoic, silent, but brooding, I guess you call him an anti-hero, in Vincent. You have the grizzled old war veteran in Sid, you know, all the little tropes and whatnot, and all these different characters, and that's cool. But my favorite use of sub-characters was in the game series of Suikoden. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but Suikoden, I don't know. Suikoden. Anyway, this game was known for its 108 stars. And yes, that literally means 108 characters you can run through the game and collect. And these characters, you collect and you build up a castle. And I love this game. You got your home fort, you build it up as you collect characters. These characters have different roles in your city. Not all of them are combat roles, not all of them are support, and not all of them are useful. But, you know, you got your blacksmiths, your armor merchants, and your item sellers, and your war planners and whatnot. And that had a vast collection of characters that I just loved. And to this day, I have not found a game whose cast of characters has been nearly as in-depth or enjoyable as any of the Suikoden games, or Suikoden games. Suikoden? I should get a pronunciation key so I know how to say that. But oh my god, that game was amazing. And it was always based around war. So you had your individual RPG elements like your turn-based combat and your fighting and whatnot. And hopefully I can get Suikoden 3. I think Suikoden 3 is available on the PlayStation Store, and I'm going to check and see because I really want to play that game. Again, I haven't played it in forever. And then you have your war games where you literally get your groups of people and you have to battle through little tactical advantages and whatnot. Now the original Suikoden game, sorry, I've only played number 2. Now the original Suikoden game, Suikoden 2, was a little bit different with the combat. I haven't played Suikoden 1, I want to play it, really want to play it, but that was a PS1 game so many years ago. Anyway, that's enough rambling on about Suikoden. Oh man. Characters are very important to a story because I cannot list a single, or I cannot name a single game, movie, or book that I read that did not have a character. Even if the character is not human, even if the character is not sentient, there's always a character in a story. And without a character, the story has no way of progressing. And, you know, as much as important as the plot is, the setting, all that stuff, without the character, nothing happens. So it's very important, and I love me some characters. I hate lazy characters. I hate characters who are just shoehorned in. They kind of annoy the heck out of me. And generally, I can tell when this character ain't supposed to be where he's supposed to be. And manufactured drama, well, that's something I'll get into in another one. I can tell you from experience that the character's relatability, familiarity, believability, all that can make or break a story. Well, anyway, that's all I got for today. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and poke that like button for me. If you feel the need to, you can comment down below. I'll get back to you as soon as I can, when I can, if I can. You know, all that jazz. And, yeah. Tune in next time when we might be talking about story elements, because that's important too. Until then, night.